cube. Alright, well, there's no 5-minute game, so when that's the case, I'm going to click on my friends games. So if you're a friend and you're playing right now, I'm going to sneak up on you and see what's going on. Okay. What do you think about when you see this position? What's the first thought you have? Here are some of mine. This bishop needs to do something. This was the more valuable of the two bishops that we just saw go off the board. That was the good bishop compared to this guy. If this knight takes, I think pawn captures is fine. That way the queen doesn't have to babysit this pawn, so that's what we're having. White is the side who's doing better. The material is balanced. This bishop is still a giant problem. So white, given the time, will be getting this last piece working on the c file. I don't see a reason to not run with that. However, if doubling the rooks, might there now be b6 and then the queen grabs this pawn? So that's maybe a reason for not moving the rook right away because of b6 and you drop the a pawn. The rook has a role for right now. h4 provides g5 as a support point. I think knight g5 should have been stopped. g6 is a very weakening move. Knight g5 might be good to just probe for weaknesses because there's a support point on f6, so knight g5, we're not really having that, are we? But, okay, we're looking at this battery. Okay, so now this is still interesting. Knight, okay, well, the knight couldn't move just yet, but I think the knight ideally would like to get to f6 in short. White is looking to break down this structure, but I don't know that you can really break it down any further. After these guys are exchanged, this is still a pretty compact structure. I don't know if it's really, well, I guess you're just doing this to exchange it off, and then you're not going to lose it as this knight goes for the journey to f6. This is going to be a problem. This is a good move. There's tactical shots now because the rook is on an unprotected square. That was a really neat move. b6, the rook is now in a problematic position. Only defended by the queen, and now it's hit twice, and the knight is hitting the queen twice. So we're going to have an interesting imbalance. After the smoke clears, we have what? We have black with a pawn and what do we have? White down a queen, but in exchange for a minor piece and a rook. I think maybe just grab this pawn. This is still quite tricky. Interesting imbalance. Okay, so the knight will be able to find good homes. One of the things you should think about if you're minus a queen here is, can I stay coordinated? Or pretty much say, I better stay coordinated, or this queen is going to land some tricky tactic. Some fork is going to happen. The queen now can make use of g5, points at e3. I think the king stepping up to f2 would really cover everything. King f2, if there's ever another check, the knight can maybe retreat to block. Maybe the bishop can find a good home on f3. I think this pawn will maybe find a place in this game, pushing forward and maybe having some checking opportunities along the second rank. Okay, the rook is very active. I really don't know who stands better here. Maybe, okay, this is probably the better one. What's the result of this f4 advance getting in? Okay, this bishop has some problems, doesn't he? Oh man, the bishop's dead. I like this idea, however, by black to undermine this pawn, and that way, you know, there's checks along the f file if there's not a pawn covering f4. And if the queen can maybe get at this pawn right here, then maybe the knight will end up falling. The bishop could take this pawn with check. I guess that's what's being calculated. Bishop takes pawn king here would lose to a fork, but I guess there's just no rush with that. Bishop takes pawn king here. I guess there wouldn't be a fantastic follow-up. So what do you do now? You're definitely going to want to avoid mate on f2. Queen here would threaten that. Queen here with check is also very interesting. Queen here with check, the king has to go to g1 or the knight has to retreat. Queen f4, king g1, queen f2, this pawn pushes. It seems like black will be able to get a minor piece back. But is there something against the king with a rook check and some forks? The knight is one step away from maybe landing a fork. Again, the king could never, let's say, go to the corner after bishop takes pawn king here, knight f7. So what do you do? What are the other candidate moves for black? A minute 10 remaining. A time edge for white. 21:54. The king has to go here, or knight f3. King e2 is mate in 2. Queen f2 to d2. Okay, so that's the knight that's retreating and defending the d4 pawn. So queen here. Okay, maybe just queen here right away would have been best. Queen here. Oh, man, that might have turned out to maybe be an unavoidable mate. Queen here. Okay, you better go queen here. Now this is a big, big problem. A very, very big problem. I don't know that you could even get out of this. How do you defend against f2 mate? You have to run, but you could only run for so long. The rook gives a check. The king plays here. The rook gives another check. King g8. And soon enough, we have queen f2 to d2. No, we don't. The knight is there to cover d2. I'm wrong again. So the king has to run. Definitely has to run very soon. Right now. There's no good move than to just run. Oh, he didn't run. Well, that happens. That's blitz, isn't it? Ouch. Mate land on f2. What was the beginning of this game? I usually go forward through this. This was a French defense, advanced French defense. I should have done that at the very beginning. But okay, I guess these guys are done. But that was the beginning of the game. Interesting. And then it turned out what? I like that b6 move. I like the queen move. I think there were some missed opportunities. I know, again, it's just blitz. But after h4, I think h6 should be one of the moves to consider. Just to rule out the queen and knight converging on h7. Because if there's a pawn push that you don't want to make, it's g6 because it's the more committal of the two. In particular, f6, weakening that where there's already a support point. Should certainly shy away from that. So maybe h6 was better, but that wasn't played. Black just ran forward with the doubling. And I think maybe knight right here, right now. g6, and then maybe get this rook over here, putting pressure on f7. I don't know. Anyhow, that was the beginning of the game that I didn't show right away. It was the advanced French, and it ended in an unfortunate way for white on f2. Okay, let me close out of that.